Welcome, everybody, to the Cone of Shame Veterinary Podcast. I am your host, Dr. Andy Roark, guys. I am here with the president of NOMV, Not One More Vet, Dr. Brian Borquin. We get in today to talking about sort of the history of NOMV, like where it's come from, what they're doing now. And if you're still thinking that like NOMV is a Facebook group and that's the primary thing, you're way behind the times. They have grown in pretty incredible ways. They are doing some pretty incredible things, and Brian sort of shares what those are. It's actually quite inspiring when you think about this nonprofit group and kind of what they do for our profession and how they've grown and things like that. So anyway, it's a great conversation. And then we start to get into what is his assessment of wellness and mental health in vet medicine today. And he's optimistic, ? But it's definitely a mixture of challenges in the future and also some good work that we have done thus far. And so anyway, it's really interesting to hear how Brian thinks about wellness and mental health and where we are since sort of alarm bells started to ring. And we started to try to do our best as a profession to raise awareness. But as he says, awareness doesn't, actually change the problem itself. And so it's interesting to hear his assessment of how are we actually doing. And so it's something I'm really glad we got to talk about. So anyway, this is a really good episode to talk to Brian a bit about his own journey as a practice owner and a leader and kind of how he puts wellness into practice at Boston Veterinary Clinic. So anyway, good episode. I think you'll really enjoy it. It's very candid. It's very insightful. I really enjoyed it. Guys, let's get into it.
This is your show. We're glad you're here. We want to help you in your veterinary career. Welcome to the Cone of Shame with Dr. Andy Roark.
Welcome to the podcast, Dr. Brian Borquin. How are you, my friend?
I am great on this hot, sweaty day. How are you?
I am good. I am good as I am happily in my basement where the air conditioning is maxed out. For those who don't know you, you are the president of NOMV, which is Not One More Vet. You're also the co-founder at Boston Veterinary Clinic. You're a practicing veterinarian, and you are a fantastic guy and a longtime friend of mine. And so I am always thrilled when I can get time to talk to you.
Same.
I wanted to get in and talk to you a little bit about NOMV, right? And so, so Not One More Vet has become a massive force around wellness and well-being in vet medicine. Brian, I am surprised at how often when I go on social media, whether it's LinkedIn or Instagram or TikTok or whatever, I see profile pictures that have NOMV, across the bottom of the picture. You guys have had a huge reach and you've clearly affected a lot of people. How do you think about that as the president of the organization? Do you consider sometimes how large your reach is, or is it kind of a surprise to you whenever you have those moments when you go, oh, wow, these are people who they all know what we're doing?
I don't pay attention to it because if I did, I'd probably be too afraid to do a podcast like this because it'd be too much on the line. So I don't let our, lack of a better term, popularity get to my head. No, all kidding aside, it's amazing. I mean, something that started out as a Facebook forum group to support even more than the loss of Dr. Sophia Yin, to where it moved into a nonprofit, to the giant organization is today with all our different support groups and the grants program and other outreach programs. It tells you the need was there.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
And the people wanted it, and we're giving the people what they asked for. And then also, I think almost equally exciting, even though we compete for the same grant dollars and stuff, is seeing the other groups that have come out of this. There's other mental health groups that are supporting the veterinary health industry, which tells you that there's a giant need. If there's a need for more than just one organization, it tells you that the need was there. So, this was a good gamble, if you will. I mean, when we went from nonprofit and really opened up some of these other programming, it was a bit of a risk with the people. If you build it, will they come? Then that only came, they brought their friends.
Yeah.
And so I always enjoy seeing those. There's times that I worry almost that if we're going to get too big, but every time that concern happens, you meet someone on the street or at a conference, probably not so much on the street. You meet someone at a conference, maybe on the street at the conference.
Sure, yeah.
And, they share with you their story and you're like, wow, if we didn't have the reach we had, would I have been able to help that person, change their life? Get them from a crisis to the next step, or let them know that there's other people out there struggling, or other people out there who got mental or just health issues. And so, that's what gets me out of bed in the morning is those little stories. So even as big as we get, I don't think we're, as my grandma would say, too big for our britches, good old Southern term, that there's still work to be done. And, I joke, our goal is to put ourselves out of business. Sadly, yes. I don't think that's going to happen in the near future, especially with the way the world's going and economics, et cetera. I think there's going to be a need for NOMV, not one for a long time to come. But that's our goal, is to put ourselves out of business.
I think that's a wonderful goal to have. Talk to me in a big timeline sort of format. Walk me through the history of NOMV, because you sort of started to go down this path. Like the Facebook group founding is, I think, where most people probably still know NOMV from. That was the introduction. I think there was a great desperate need for mental health support and wellness support in vet medicine. And I think NOMV was something that was beautiful in that it rose organically at this time that it was needed, and you had so many people who wanted to lean forward. And then, if that's the first sort of dot on the timeline, is the second dot on the timeline sort of the nonprofit status? And then what have been the other sort of phases or significant additions to NOMV between its founding and kind of where we are now?
You said exactly right. It started out as a Facebook group of a bunch of friends. Friends wrote to friends. And, as anyone will probably listen to this podcast, the veterinary community is very small. So good or bad, and I say bad because one of the reasons for why I think NOMV is so necessary is because we are such a small knit group. And so everybody knows somebody who has died by suicide, or knows someone who's struggling, or all the above. And so, word kind of spread fast. More and more people from other schools, other organizations, other communities joined this Facebook group. And it quickly became apparent that this was not going to be enough. And so the nonprofit was formed. Soon after that, a board was formed. That's when I was brought in. Both myself and my husband, Paul Materis, had been big contributors of time, money, and fundraising for Human Rights Campaign, which is the largest LGBTQ plus lobbyist fundraising group. And we had done really well at that. So Dr. Carrie Journey tapped us very quickly at an uncharted...
I was going to say, where did you guys meet up exactly?
Yeah, at an uncharted meeting over margaritas, I believe, as often is the case. And next thing I know, I was on the board. And so, forming a board and what that looked like. As you get to be a larger organization, you do want to take it out of the hands of just a few individuals because they become burnout. And the last thing you want from an organization like NOMV is to have burnout, people running, and it often is time to pass the baton. I've learned in my own organizations that I've helped begin is that there comes a point where passing the baton is necessary for new ideas, new blood, and that's what happened. When I came on board, still huge kudos to the originators, founders. I want to put that out there. And then, we had our first executive director, which was huge. We would say she liked to corral the wildcats, if you were, because we had lots of ideas and go in every direction, and someone had to reel that in. So we were reeled in a bit. And what's really where the program started to take off. Some of them were, I joke, literally off the back of a napkin. So Clear Blueprint, which is a accrediting that was formed for veterinary clinics, came from us simply saying, well, everyone's using the term unicorn clinic now, and everyone says it's just like a family. Well, some families stuck, and you can't all be a unicorn clinic. So how do you know who is really a unicorn clinic and who is actually unique? And so we said, well, what if there was accreditation? What if there was something like AHA or Fear Free? And so literally on the back of a napkin, sitting around, I think that was a glass of I think it sounds like we're drinking too much, but these ideas happen when you're sitting around and drinking with friends. And we started scribbling on the back of a napkin. What would we want as the buckets of what would cause a clinic to be able to be accredited in mental health? And so Clear Blueprint was born. And literally simple as that. I mean, if you look back to the origins, it came off the back of a napkin, Paul, myself, and a few other put together. And so for those who aren't familiar, this is a program that you can apply for to be accredited. And basically what it means is that your entire staff, I think 80% of the staff, has to have input into a set of questions that are given. And these range from the mental health, how people are treated. Do you actually give lunch? Does your boss throw things at you? Do you use the proper pronouns? Are you allowed to take a vacation, or is that an act of God? And so you actually get 80% involvement, and then it's a 75% pass rate to become accredited. Thankfully, as one of the betas, we were accredited. That would have been a bad look for the board member who originated the program to not pass, but we were accredited. And what that means for those that are in the know, and this is still a newish program for us, it's only a couple of years, so if people don't know about it, don't feel bad, is that you can look to that, and if you see that mark of Clear Blueprint accredited, which like I have on my signature, you know that we have put our mouth where our money. Now, we put our money, yeah. You put something with it. You put your money where your mouth is, right?
Your mouth and your money are in the same place.
Thank you.
Yes.
So if I'm gonna go into a speaking engagement and talk about how I consider mental health so important, and then you actually get and you find out that it was just a mirage. This says our employees agree that this is a good place to work. That we are different than other clinics. You can say that fairly safely. I hear it over and over again.
Yeah.
People will come up to us and say, about BBC, and not BBC, this would be the same for other Clear Blueprint, or hopefully prospective Clear Blueprint clinics of the future, is that they really walk the walk and they talk the talk.
Yeah.
And so when you're looking for a job or you're trying to leave a bad situation, and what ends up happening, and this is what brought this about, is someone said, oh, I moved across country for this amazing job, and I don't even think it's the same clinic. The way they acted, the way I was there for my interview day, and we've all gone through that, right? I remember I once did a stop in a clinic I was considering, and I wasn't there on visit day. There were signs up, hush, shush, don't speak. Everyone was helter-skelter running around scared as like chickens, and I was like, oh, this is very different than the day I interviewed. So I'm rambling about this, but that's our Clear Blueprint program. Lifeboat is another really important program for us. So both sides of the coin, right? So these are all the good things. So what are some things that maybe NOMV hasn't done great at? We used to get dinged for not having enough support, right? So you had the floor lanes, which is a place where you can go and talk, and you can, Joe Schmo can help someone else. So this became people, peer support, who actually had been trained, right? So these were people who had actually gone through additional training. And then just last year, we took veterinary mental health services under our wing. These are clinical professionals who work with the veterinary community in a support situation. And so that's been a real game changer for us. We've got some fancy names that are working for NOMV. And I don't say that as I want people to be starstruck, but to show that we really are a force to be reckoned with, because they wouldn't work with us if we didn't have the credentials to have them working for us.
Right.
And so that's been huge for us. And then, there's still our tried and true, our grants program. This is going to be the backbone of NOMV. And this is to my story of what gets me out of bed early in the morning. And so if I can tell a quick story, one of the best, because when we do these conferences and stuff, people always come up and they we love NOMV. But some of the things that you hear, right, and the grant that you gave me. So two quick stories I'll tell is one comes up to me and she kind of played me for a little bit. She asked me about NOMV and what it was, and she said, okay, I just want to make sure you knew what you're talking about. I was like, well, I am the president. And she had said that she had a fairly significant operation happen, and it took longer to heal than she anticipated. And so she went through her short-term disability and wasn't able to pay for childcare. And if she couldn't pay for childcare to go back to work part-time, how could she make ends meet, right? And so we provided her with just a grant, and that was able to help her. Even better yet, we recently had someone write a letter to us saying they had been someone who had been a supporter of NOMV and had kind of sang our accolades, and more in the emergency world, and loved trauma and all that. And they actually got in a horrible mountain biking accident and actually had done some nerve damage. A kind of similar thing, had gone through their savings, the short-term disability, and were out longer than had anticipated. The bills were starting to add up, and so they applied for a grant. And she said, things had gotten to be pretty dire, was really having problems kind of seeing that there was a light at the end of the tunnel, visiting a train or a bill collector. And our grant that we provide her gave her a Band-Aid and gave her hope to kind of get past those dark days. And sometimes that's all NOMV needs to be. It's just, it needs to get you from point A to point B, gives you some hope, right? Life is all about hope. And so that's still our most basic program. I just did some quick math here on the back of the napkin. And between 24 and 25, we gave out over $200,000 in grants, and that was to 500 grantees. So that's 500 people whose lives we changed, hopefully for the better.
Yeah.
Who we were able to give a little glimmer of hope. And we're not talking tens of thousands of dollars. Some of these are just $500. It's a car payment. But you know what? If you don't have a car, you can't get to work. If you can't get to work, you can't get paid. If you can't get paid, you don't make a car payment. and suddenly things get dire really fast. And then just real quickly, we still have our volunteer program. We have our outreach and education programs. And that's what has kind of filled out the umbrella of where we are today.
That's amazing. Like just to grow from the Facebook group into something that's so structured and organized, and it's really amazing in what you've built. You alluded to this a little bit earlier on, but I have to ask, Brian, when you think about mental health and wellness in vet medicine today, can you give me kind of your perceived status report? Do you feel like we've made progress as a profession in addressing mental health, wellness, suicide? Do you feel like we're kind of, I don't know, are we treading water? What is your general perception of, if I had to say, give me a wellness mental health status report? Are you going to say, we're in trouble, Andy? Or do you feel like there's hope and optimism ahead? Where are you in that?
Well, I have to have hope, right? Because I'm president of a wellness group. See, we're treading water. I mean, awareness is there. Right.
Yes.
So there was a day where this was the dirty secret of veterinary medicine.
Yes.
Right? And not only our profession. And I like to say that. I hear people say, I hear that we have the biggest problem. Who cares who has the biggest problem? This is not a race we want to win. But, I would say awareness is there. But, there's still people when I talk at these conferences who still don't know what NOMV is. They don't know that there's people who are struggling. They come up because they think we have a cool sticker, or they saw our emblem on Facebook and they wondered what it's about. So I would say awareness is we're up to probably a B, but we're not in the A status. And then as far as, the wellness of the industry, sadly, that's where I don't have so much hope, right? So when you look at the economy, I mean, I'm seeing it, and I'm in a primary city. I'm in a very affluent area. I'm seeing surgeries being pushed off, people asking for estimates, treatment plans. Do I have to do that today? Could we do this first and not that? I'm not used to that, Andy. I'm used to being told, they walk in, COVID, get it done, right? Get it done. I'll go grab a coffee. We're not seeing that as much. And so that's going to go downhill, right? So that's kind of issue number one. The other is, politics and tariffs and all of that. That's going to hit our medical supplies. And then we have to, we reach a point where we can only raise prices so much. And this is not going to be a politics soapbox, although I live in Boston, so I'm sure you can imagine what my politics are. But, those tariffs are going to hit, on Joe Main Street, right? And that's where it's getting harder. And I'm still an independent clinic. It's getting harder on Harbor. I mean, with the big set buyout a couple of years ago, I'm up against, there's only a couple of us who are independents. So I'm up against, these larger companies who, they can buy the vaccines for half the price, right? So now I'm competing for the same talent, only they can pay a lot more. And so that gets harder for the business owners, right? And a lot of us can't, we missed out on that, if you will. It was too early for me. So I'm not retiring next year. And so, payroll starts to get harder to get to. And so, those are all things that I think are playing a larger role as we see the merging of these larger companies. It's harder for the smaller person. And, that vice grip starts to get a little bit tighter because you're competing against bigger things. And then you look at Amazon just bought VetSource.
Yep.
What do we think's going to happen with that?
They're not going to do anything. They're just going to put it in a closet somewhere and forget about it.
Right. So now I'm against Amazon. I'm up against Bezos. I mean, what do you think? You think that I'm sleeping at night with that? So I think there's different struggles, and then there's the same old struggles, right? There's we are the one profession where we can have the best medicine in the world, and if I can't get you to understand that as a pet parent, then I'm basically a used car salesman trying to convince you to do something because your poor pet can't speak for itself. And so that's never going to go away. That's inherent in the profession. Insurance, good or bad, whatever you think about it, it's just not where it is in other countries. And so, you can say no to the thing that fixes your pet. And when the economy is rough, guess what? You're coming in on day 6 of being sick instead of day 2. Well, it got a lot more expensive and the prognosis just got a little worse. So now we're talking about euthanasia, and that's a whole other, can of worms in veterinary medicine. So yeah, sadly, the outlook, I don't want to be pessimistic. I mean, awareness is great, but the problems are still there, and I don't know if the problems have been fixed. I mean, yes, I give my lunch breaks now, right? I remember once I once said, he'll take lunch when I say he'll take lunch, like an old cranky white guy. And I was young at the time. Versus now, lunches are sacred. No, like we close. You get your lunch. I don't care if you want to eat or not. You're going to take the time because you need that mental break, right? So there are improvements that have been made that it makes life better. Like you don't have to trade your shift. I mean, I used to think, oh, you can't take a Saturday off unless you trade with someone else. Well, no, now we actually let you take your day off. Shocking, like every other profession does. So I do think there are improvements that have made it better in veterinary medicine, but there's still inherent. We euthanize pets. We have the ability to treat, and we can have a client say no. And so that stuff's still on there.
Brian, I have been impressed over the years with the steps that you have actually made at Boston Veterinary Clinic to take care of your own staff. Can you talk a little bit about sort of your journey there and sort of how you have engaged with your staff and kind of just adjustments that you have made? And I've gotten to watch this over the years, and it's just something I admire about you and sort of the way that you run your practice. So can you sort of tell that story of your growth and it's sort of a story of you kind of putting your money where your mouth is?
And this is where I don't mind making fun of myself. So this will be a fun story, hopefully. I graduated Cornell. I had my first job. Okay, mentorship. Not amazing, but it was okay for that time, right? Mm-hmm. The practice order didn't go on vacation the next day. This used to happen, so that was awesome. I had expensive taste. I lived in Boston, and I wanted nice things, so I followed the corporate jobs because they paid a lot. And once again, I really like nice things, so I also did a lot of relief work. And so I saw a lot of clinics, Andy. I saw the good, the bad, the dirty. I saw the things you didn't want to see. I went to places that I never wanted to go to again. And, my life is a lot about the plus column and the minus column. And I started to see stuff that I wanted out of life, or I wanted from my life, or wanted from my clinic. And then there was the things I didn't want. And so when Boston Veterinary Clinic was born, first as a mobile clinic and then a brick and mortar, we built it around the idea of what I wanted. Now, some of that was medically, some of it was structurally, and some of it was, staff-wide. I'd love to say it was excellent at first. Now, I like to say I was a boss. I wasn't a leader. I was one of those nasty power trip guys who just thought, you're angelic because I said I did it and did some of the same crappy stuff that was done to me. Fortunately, I came around. That's kind of around the time Uncharted and those things were happening. And so I quickly changed my ways. And, we started to really make the BBC model, when we did our culture and we did our values, which I'm telling you at first, I was like, why are we bothering with this? Can't we just be good people? Why do we have to have values? You need values because it's what, courses your entire day. And we started saying, happy staff is going to produce good medicine. Very simple tenet. If they're happy, they're going to work hard, right? Work hard, play hard. If I give you a 3-day weekend, and you don't have to take off every other time when your friend has a wedding, you're going to be happier being here. If you're not happy being here, if I'm not letting you eat, if I'm not letting you pee, if I'm not letting you leave work on time, you're either not going to do a good job or you're going to leave. And that's bad for the whole team. When we learn some hard lessons, like don't keep people on who don't want to be here. For me, that I used to see it as a failure. If someone left or if I let someone go, that was a failure. No. Keeping them on when they don't want to be here or you don't want them to be here is the failure. No one wins. The hard school knocks definitely been knocked down a bunch of times. But now I've got a staff who wants to be here. We don't put a lot of money into advertising, through my work with Uncharted, with NOMV, Fear Free, all that. People see that. Fear Free is huge for us. And we say Fear Free is not just for the pet. It's for the employee. It's also for the pet parent. So, you can't be saying, oh, get PDPs to little Susie, but I'm going to scream at you in the back, bad employee. You don't know. You got to once again walk the walk and talk the talk. I've been on the other side of I've been an associate for years. I don't like the word associate. Let's just say veterinarian. You're a veterinarian who works with me. You're my colleague. Because I think even associate sometimes gives this like classism, right? We're all in this together. And then you can remember, I was a tech once. I love veterinarians who were techs. Because they've walked through those shoes and they know, what, if you're going to say okay to that emergency at 6:45, are you going to check with me first? Because I'm the one who has to get home and take care of my kid. You're getting paid extra for this, or et cetera. So, just those kind of lessons. And I find that the coolest thing for me is as I've gone from practicing to, more management, and I now have veterinary managers at each of my facilities, is now watching them grow as they've changed from bosses to leaders. Fortunately, they were quicker ones than I was, but they had a good teacher. But watching that, and and now their managers are doing the same thing. They're treating with compassion, they're treating with respect, and clients see it. Clients see it. They tell us it's just a different feel when you walk in here. And the opposite. If it's an off day, clients pick up on it. They're like, whoa, things are feeling weird here today. And we're like, what's going on? Oh, well, so-and-so has some stuff happening. And so, that's it. It's treating, and it's so simple. Make your staff, feed them. Buy them lunch. Don't do lunch and learn just for the doctors. Do it for the whole staff. Make your reps pay for more than, pay everybody. They'll pay more than just pizza. They'll get you really good shit. I mean, it's good stuff. You bring them in enough money, they're going to get you better stuff. Ask for more than pizza. Switch it up. And we do all that. And I guess the last thing I would say is I go back for my team. Like, don't mess with my team. If you're a vendor and you treat someone not well, no, sir. And the same thing with my clients. Depending on the infraction, they might get one warning. Maybe you'll be better served somewhere else, because you're not going to treat my team that way. And, that's the best thing. One of the best advice I can give as a practice owner, or just as a human being, is protect your team, because they got your back, but you have their back. Because when you do, they're going to remember that forever. You sell them out, and you just say, oh, I can't believe they did that. Let me go like whip them with a piece of spaghetti. That's the quickest way to lose trust. And so that would be my long-winded way of the BVC way.
Yeah. Dr. Brian Borkwin, thank you so much for being here. It's always great to catch up with you. Where can they find you online? Where can they learn more about NOMV and how to get involved?
So I'll do the plug for NOMV first, because that's why I'm here. So NOMV.org, NOMV.org. Go there. How can you help? Right. So number one, money. Right. So at the end of the day, money is what makes these grants go, and that's what changes people's lives. So whether you are a one-time donor, you want to be a regular donor, you want to be a sponsor, you want to get involved with the Race Around the World, which is an annual campaign we have, money. And I just, also my major job as president is to bring in money. So please make my job easier. Okay, give us money, because that money is going to turn around and we give it right back to the veterinary community. My job, by the way, is volunteer. I don't get paid $1. I didn't pay for my own travel. Also, you can volunteer, right? So we need people to fill these positions, people to work at these conferences, people to spread the word. Go onto our Instagram, go on our social media, let other people know, because the more people are aware of a NOMV, the more help that they can do. Myself, you can check me out at bostonveterinary.com, Brian Borkwin on Instagram, or Boston Veterinary Clinic on Instagram, on Facebook, everywhere. I'm not that hard to find. It's BOURQUIN, and I'm a one and only. So Dr. B. I'm easy to find.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being here. Guys, thanks for tuning in, everybody. Take care of yourselves, gang. We'll talk to you later.
Bye.
And that's what I got. Guys, thanks for being here. Thanks to Dr. Brian Borkwin and NOMV for being here and sharing his ideas and his perspective. Gang, if you are not familiar with NOMV, I hope you'll check it out. If you are feeling like you're drowning, definitely take a look at NOMV. It's a wonderful organization. They've got their hand out to help people in the vet profession who need just a little bit of support. And I think we all need a little bit of support sometimes. So anyway, guys, take care of yourselves. I mean that. Be well. All right. I'll talk to you later on. Bye.